Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Esquire Coaching Radio, where we help attorneys achieve unparalleled personal and professional success. And now here's your host, Ann Jenrette Thomas.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Esquire Coaching Radio. It's such a pleasure to be here with you today. For those of you who are new to Esquire Coaching, we are a coaching and consulting firm that is dedicated to helping attorneys achieve extraordinary whole life success. To that end, we discuss the full range of topics from building business to getting a job to work-life balance and everything in between. Today, we have a unique program. This is part 2 of a 2-part series on building your law practice using social media. So if you have been curious about how to build your law practice using social media but you feel overwhelmed, then today is going to be wonderful for you. We have with us again Esquire Coaching's very own social media expert, Biana Bachman. Yay, Biana! And today, Biana is going to really focus her talk about social media strategy in particular. And just for those of you who missed last week, I want to give you a brief bio about Biana. Biana specializes in helping our clients develop sound, ethical marketing campaigns that utilize all forms of social media, including blogging, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. She has brought her marketing insight to a variety of companies in the nonprofit, public, and private sectors. She also serves as co-organizer of the Arts Tech Meetup Group in New York City and has served on the board of Ann Thomas Coaching and Consulting, LLC, since January 2012. She's proud to be a Terrier, having received her Bachelor of Science in Communications from Boston University. Welcome, Biana.
Thank you, Ann, for having me on the show once again.
Yay. I think we got such a great reviews about what you had shared last week, and I'm excited to delve a little deeper into this really important and often confusing topic for lawyers. So before we begin, I just want to remind our callers that there will be time at the end of our show to ask questions. Simply call 347-838-8719 and press 1 to be in the queue. That's 347-838-8719. All right, so let's dive right in. Last week, and for those of you who missed last week's episode, there is a replay available on our Blog Talk Radio site. Just simply go on Blog Talk Radio /Esquire-Coaching, and you'll be able to get access to all our previous shows. So last week, Biana, you talked a little bit about how a lawyer can develop a social media strategy. And in particular, you talked about how the strategy, your social media strategy, works best and most effectively when it's part of a larger strategy, when it's tied to your overall business goals, your financial goals, and your overall marketing efforts. So today, before developing a social media strategy, what are some preliminary steps that a lawyer or a law firm or whoever is responsible for marketing at a law firm should take before developing a strategy?
Absolutely. So just to recap some of my points from last week about a social media strategy getting into the greater business goals. A lot of people approach social media as sort of a one-off tool in a silo off on its own. It's sort of the new kid on the block, and people just think that they have to do it, so they jump right in. But really, it works best when it's part of your overall business strategy. So when creating the strategy itself, you need to do it in a tiered process. You need to look at your business goals and then determine what your marketing goals are that can help you achieve those business goals that you have set, whether that's for the next quarter, for the next 6 months, for the year, etc. And then figure out how you can utilize these social media platforms to achieve those marketing goals that you have set out. So it really needs to be a sort of a wholesale holistic process. But before you sort of delve into social media, you need to be able to understand the platforms. You need to be able to understand social media overall and what the general best practices are for social media marketing. But you also need to understand the individual platforms, because each platform and each community, they have a different style, they each have a different voice, they vary greatly. If you're starting a blog, you're going to be looking at long-form content. If you're utilizing LinkedIn, it really has much more of a business focus. If you're using Twitter, you need to understand how people speak on that platform within the 140-character limitation. So you really need to sort of understand each of the platforms individually and social media as a whole. So how do you do that? Where do you start? The first step is really to listen. You want to get plugged into these networks. You want to see what people are posting. Just sort of familiarize yourself with the platforms. And this you want to do with both people that are within your target audience, to determine what your target audience is and find those people on the platforms and see how they're talking and communicating with one another. And this is also a great opportunity to do some competitive analysis. Find your competitors that are utilizing these social media platforms and see what they're doing. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be a copycat, but it's a great way to inform your strategy and figure out what works for them, what doesn't work for them, what you can adapt for your own uses. So really you want to take time to just familiarize yourself with those platforms, to listen to what people are doing, and sort of learn the lingo, so to say. Again, you definitely want to evaluate what your competition is doing, and you have to definitely do your due diligence when researching these before you get started. As with anything, there are some rules and regulations that are very specific to both the field of law, to social media. There's FCC guidelines that you want to review. There's specific rules that are set out for blogs and a disclaimer that you need to put on all blog posts. And in addition to the stringent rules that are in place, there's also just some community guidelines and best practices that you want to research to figure out the do's and don'ts of social media and of social media platforms that are out there.
Hey, Viana, is there a place where people can readily access some of these best practices, or is there a way for us to make that available on Esquire Coaching's blog?
Yeah, absolutely. We can definitely get that up on Esquire Coaching's blog. Some places that I really think are great in terms of social media best practices, there's a site called Social Media Examiner that has a lot of great information. HubSpot is a great company that offers a lot of free, useful information for businesses out there. So there's definitely resources, and we can absolutely add those to Esquire Coaching as well.
Okay, that would be great. So we will, we want to make sure that we provide all of you the tools that you need to succeed. So so we'll make sure that that's available on our website as well. So I love what you're saying. Really listen, evaluate not only your target client base, but also those who are your competitors, and really taking a look at that. Now, as another preliminary matter, who do you think should be involved in the social media strategy planning process?
Yeah, so the great thing about social media is that it's a very democratic platform. So anyone and everyone can and often does utilize various social media platforms in different ways. So you want to get as many people involved in the brainstorming process as possible. So people from all areas of your company, from specifically if you have a marketing department, they absolutely need to be involved, but you want to get your top-level employees involved. You want to get your admin staff involved. You want to get feedback from as many people as possible because you never know where a good idea can come from. So when you're doing the brainstorming process, you definitely want to involve as many shareholders as possible. And if you can also get feedback from your clients, from your employees, from your board, get as many people involved for the brainstorming itself. And then you want to figure out a specific structure when you're getting down to the nitty-gritty of strategy creation. So figure out who needs to be charged with taking all of these great ideas and then incorporating them into the specific strategy that you're creating.
And so just to back up a little bit, when you're talking about brainstorming, you're talking about brainstorming potential good topics that would be relevant for your target market. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, absolutely. Whether that's content or things that you can share, ideas of types of content to share, ideas of topics to cover, ideas of questions that might come up.
Oh, that's so good. Topics. I think it sounds like such a great brainstorming, such a great tool to have to be able to generate very clearly thought out content, so great tip. Now, I know that when you deal with clients, you actually go in and help clients develop their social media strategies. What is your typical first step?
Yeah, so when I go in to a client, sometimes they've already have a presence on social media, and sometimes they don't. A lot of times they'll have utilized traditional marketing methods but haven't delved into social media yet. But in both situations, what you want to do, and what I would do specifically, is go in and figure out what they've done already. What marketing tools, whether they're social media or not, have they done already, and figure out what has worked for them and what has not worked for them, and what maybe worked in the past but doesn't work anymore. Because marketing and social media certainly are a constantly evolving field. So what might have worked for your law firm or law practice 5 years ago may not be what you want to do now. So we need to go in and do sort of a SWOT analysis and figure out if we have tried A, B, C, and D, what has been successful, what hasn't been successful, and how we can adapt those and change them and try new things to figure out sort of what the next steps are.
Okay, great. And just to make sure our listeners are on the same page, SWOT analysis is an acronym that stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So let's, just moving right along, I'm just curious about, you had talked last week about your branding voice. Can you share a little bit more? Can you provide a little bit more detail about that?
Absolutely. So the brand voice is really sort of just what it sounds like, the voice that you use when representing your brand on social media, and not just social media, when you're representing the brand on any marketing platforms. So it involves a few different aspects. It refers to the tone that you use, whether it's informal or formal. It's the word choice that you have, the style of writing. So it's really about if the brand and the company were a person, how would that person speak? How would they communicate? And you want to establish some guidelines around that. So regardless of who's working on creating the content or distributing the content, you want to make sure that there's a fluid voice. So it all sounds the same regardless of who's creating it or who's posting it. And figure out basically what that brand sounds like and how you want that brand to come across to your audience.
That makes a lot of sense, especially, I think that's a particular issue in the larger firms, mid-size and larger firms, where you might need to make sure that things are funneled through a marketing director or maybe the partner that's in charge of your particular section, or practice area. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And for maybe smaller firms, it might not be as difficult. Maybe it's just really one person that's been doing everything anyway. So there might naturally be a fluidity, but it's a great point. Now,
yeah, I do think it's still important for solo practitioners and small firms as well, because even though there might be one person working on it now, if the company grows, then you want to be able to continue that same brand voice. And also, even for, let's say, a solo practitioner, the way you speak to your friends and family may not necessarily be the way that you want to come across in your professional profile. So you do it's important to think about for everyone, both whether it's you are the brand voice or if the company is the brand voice. It's definitely still something you need to put some thought into.
Great point. I'm going to take a moment now to remind our audience that if you want to ask Deanna a question directly, call 347-838-8719 and press 1 so you can be in the queue. That's 347-838-8719. So, Deanna, you know as well as I do that lawyers are busy. I mean, extremely busy. So how does a lawyer, particularly a sole proprietor or a small firm partner, manage to fit social media management into their busy schedule?
Absolutely. That's a great question. I know a lot of people are often concerned about sort of dipping their toes into social media because they think it's going to take up all of their time, or they have visions of, people like me who are social media experts and on their phones 24/7. But that's definitely not what needs to happen. The key to keeping social media and your social media marketing manageable is planning. So earlier we talked about your strategy and how that fits into overall, but you also need to make sure that you're planning out your content. And the tool that I use and I've shared with you, Ann, is a content calendar, which is something that I live and die by for all of my clients. And all it is a spreadsheet with all of the dates of the month laid out and so you have the dates on one axis and the various platforms on another axis. And then you're just plugging in the information. So once you have, let's say, a week's worth of content planned or a month's worth of content planned, which really, the more you do it, the faster that'll be, and having a place to sort of plunk things before you sit down to plan is important as well. You just want to sort of plot out what the content is that you're sharing throughout the week, and then you have two options. You can either you can publish them ad hoc throughout the week, or there's a lot of really great tools out there where it allows you to just schedule all of those posts. So if you spend maybe an hour on Monday scheduling out the post for the week, the great thing is that they'll go out throughout the week and you've already done all of the work that you have to do. The important thing is to make sure you're going back periodically and checking for people's responses and questions, but really have the opportunity to plan ahead and even schedule ahead so that content goes out and you've already done your work and you can sort of cross that off of the to-do list for the week.
That is so great. And, just to share with our audience, one tool that I have used in the past is Hootsuite, and it's a minimal investment, but it is one of those things that allows you to schedule things out in advance. And, frankly, as lawyers, this is an important business development tool. I know that there's a lot of fear, especially with all of the case rulings about attorney advertisement rulings and regarding blogs and social media and so forth. But nevertheless, this is where social media is where people in today's day and age are congregating and engaging. So carving out that time to plan, as Bianna said, and really plan out your content is super important. So, Bianna, there is this this ongoing debate that I keep hearing about size versus engagement, the size of your list or your audience base versus engagement. So I'd like you to just share your thoughts about this matter.
Absolutely, and this is something that I run into all the time. I have clients and companies that I've worked for who pull a number out of a hat and say, by the year's end, I want 10,000 Facebook fans, or by year's end, I want, 50,000 Twitter followers. The thing to keep in mind is that those individuals really need to be qualified leads for you and your company. They need to be people who are within your target audience, and they need to be people who are engaging with your brand on these platforms. So, first of all, I think the size is less important than the quality. I'm definitely a big proponent about quality over quantity.
You always are.
This is very true. Anne knows this all too well. And once your community grows, it will grow organically, and there are a lot of tools to grow it with virality as well and advertising. But you want to start off growing your community organically, and you want to make sure that the people that you're reaching out to that are following you on Twitter or liking your page on Facebook make sense for your company. Because I promise you, if you buy those followers or you buy those likes in, how do I put this? In an unqualified way, it's going to come and bite you later. Now, what is engagement? If you have people who are listening to you, but you also want them to engage with you. And this really goes back to my earlier point about social media being a two-way communications platform. You need to be talking to your audience regardless of the size, but you also really want your audience to be engaging with you. You want it to be a two-way conversation. So you need to be able to, regardless of the size of your audience, whether that's 5 people or 50,000 people, they need to be engaging with you. And that's really where the heart of social media comes into play, and where it works most effectively is when you are talking to your audience, but your audience is also responding to you and communicating with you.
That is so brilliant.
Yeah. And
oh, sorry, did I cut you off? Go ahead.
Oh, no. Platforms such as Facebook actually take this into very serious consideration when publishing your posts to the newsfeed, which is sort of just a very techie way of saying the more that your audience is engaging with your page and updates from your page, the more visibility that those updates are going to get. So both from sort of a philosophical standpoint, but from a tactical standpoint, it's really key that you get your audience to engage with your brand.
It's so true. And, just to share an anecdote from another business that I had run, I actually hired a social media marketing firm at the time, and they got me, for example, thousands of Twitter followers, but it was not an engaged community. So I really commend that point. Now, you talked last week a bit about content creation, that there's 2 general components that you discussed. One is content and one is distribution. One question that I constantly hear from lawyers is, well, how do I know what to write? So do you have any tips on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is always an issue with any industry is, okay, I'm here, I have a page, I have a Twitter account, what next? Well, the next step is really to provide content to your community. And what is content? Content is really just information. It's a way of offering information. And there's a ton that you can say, but a few examples are case studies are really important. As a lawyer and me personally as a social media expert, I'm constantly bombarded with industry news and industry information, and though it may be familiar to you, it could be really useful and important to your audience. So you might want to share case studies of work that you've done, of course, without giving away any of the client information. And then this is a great opportunity to offer lessons learned to your community. So something that you've gone through with a client can really be useful for your potential clients and your audience of lessons that they can learn for cases that you have covered. You also want to share industry news. So if there's any sort of watershed cases or updates or changes in your area of expertise, this is a really great chance to share that with your audience so that they're up to date as you continue to be up to date. And sort of the second benefit of that is really that they know that you are staying up to date with your information and you come across as a thought leader in your industry. You want to share company news, company updates. Is your company growing? Are you involved in community work, in charity work? These are really great opportunities to showcase what's going on with your company and do it in a very casual way. It doesn't have to necessarily be salesy. It's really just keeping your community informed of what's going on within your company. Yeah, so those are just some ideas, but really the list is endless.
Those are great. And I think earlier you had mentioned about getting a lot of people involved in brainstorming potential ideas. You know, you might as well ask. Like, we have our clients. Might as well ask, is there something, you know, that you wish you had more information on, something you wish you knew, or something you know now that you wish you had known earlier? And those could all provide great sources for content. Now, what about structure? How would you recommend that someone structure their content? Meaning, you know, it is a business development tool, so how much should be about promotions or information? Like, what would you say?
Absolutely. So in terms of how you break down the content that you share, this can really vary depending on what's right for your company, what's right at the time, and what types of information that you have to share. But as a general rule of thumb, I really like to break it down into thirds. So a third of your content generally should be informational and educational. Educational information that you can share with your audience that informs them, that doesn't relate precisely to what you are doing or what services you're selling, but that are in your area of expertise that are useful to your audience. And then another third should be promotional business development information, where you really talk about what the company does, and this is the sales focused aspect. And then the last third is a really great opportunity just to sort of give everyone a behind the scenes view of the company. So share general company news, share some photos. Are you having a Christmas party? Put up some photos of your Christmas party. And it's important that this is still within the brand voice. So it shouldn't be too informal. But it's a great opportunity to share just some fun behind the scenes info. And those are sort of the general rules of breakdown. But it, again, will vary.
I love it. You know, you're not going to believe this, but we are nearly out of time, Deanna. So I want to thank you for just being such a great guest, providing such valuable content. And I want to let our audience know that if you need support with your social media strategy, whether you're a solo practitioner, whether you are in a mid-sized firm or a large firm, we're here to support you. Deanna, any final words of advice or wisdom?
Look us up, check out the Esquire Coaching blog. We'll be sharing useful information for that. And I just want to say thank you again, Anne, for having me on the show.
Oh, you're amazing. I'm so glad that you're on our team. So next week, folks, stay tuned because we have Jean Hannum joining us, and she's going to talk to us about leadership and fear, a really important topic for all lawyers since most people tend to look to us for leadership, whether we want it or not. All right, folks, thanks for joining us in this week's episode of Esquire Coaching Radio. We'll see you next week. Bye.